Good morning and afternoon, wherever you are around the world, Indian mobile gamers. This is Tyler Oliver, reviewing Dungeon Lurk 2. Recently out for the Steam Greenlight, mobile phones all over the world. To open up, we're going to start with the story, which is where games particularly shine for me. I'm one of those hoity-toity, very snooty games or arts kind of guys, and sometimes I can be a little unfair regarding things like that. However, the story does not seem to be the main focus of the game, and it's more or less something just to outline and form a perimeter of why you're here and what you're doing. So, without much further ado, we start with Kegrin, the Dread King, who has lost his corporeal form and now has this dungeon deep underground and all of his lords and soul collectors trapped within to reform his body in some way. He's totally not related to Sauron. But the story, other than the opening text screens given to you all Doom style right up front, is just totally optional set pieces, bits of furniture, shrines, things like that you don't necessarily have to interact with, so pushing the story in any meaningful way doesn't seem to be what they had in mind as far as a driving force for the game. Having said that though, the story is fair enough on its own, so, moderate points for that. The gameplay in and of itself starts out, without much of a tutorial to begin with, and you just have the first couple of minutes to wander around learning your controls, which seem at first a little unintuitive, but you pick them up rather quickly, and if you find that you don't like the standardized controls, they actually have several options that you can go to in the settings menu and switch up your setup entirely. So, points for that, and there's not many hotkeys to remap, so there's not really a menu for that. You just have a couple of, there's the mouse controls, a joystick control, obviously optimized for phones, and then just the standard WASD or arrow keys. So it's whichever you like to do, whichever you find a little more smooth for your gameplay style. Moving along into the gameplay, it's very much an action-adventure game, and you're going to use key on door and use tool on obstacle to progress your way as soon as you meet something that arrests your forward progress. The level design is pretty intuitive. It is essentially a linear hallway, but that's not to be confused with the game feeling, in a singular direction. I'm not going to call the level design sprawling or expansive, but it certainly doesn't feel linear, and you certainly do get the idea that you're actually in a dungeon in this underground temple. So it's points for that, and the visual style in and of itself is very nostalgic and reminiscent of Tomb Raider for me, and since I recently learned that it's optimized for mobile phones as well, the graphical quality is fair enough. As far as the soundtrack is concerned, it does its job just fine. It's not something that I'm going to rush out to purchase should the soundtrack come out all on its own, but it's not so obvious or so much of a letdown that I notice. It fits the job just fine and provides wonderful temple-style ambience for what you would expect. Where the game actually really shines for me is in that same adventure style, which is one of my favorite genres and one that is sadly dying out. Seeing a bit of resurgence in the Indian mobile scene, but the puzzles in this game are just very creative, very masterfully done. They actually make you think. The game doesn't hold your hand anyway. Like I said before, there's no real tutorial or anything like that, so as soon as you get to these puzzles, you have to look around, you have to check the environment, you have to go back and make sure there's things you didn't miss. And the first couple of puzzles, some are more simple than others, and some are actually quite challenging and require an investment of your attention to complete and move forward in the game. And some of them are very creatively done and far-reaching. Like you're getting information for some of these puzzles early on for puzzles that you're not going to see until later on. So without spoiling anything, the only advice I can really give is to pay attention. The game rewards diligent explorations and punishes your foolishness outright, pretty much. So I really appreciate that the game treats me like I have a brain rather than just some dullard who's wasting an afternoon on whatever. Overall, the game did very well, and I played through the entirety of it in the first two times that I opened up the menu. So while it's not the most immersive thing I ever played, it certainly kept me interested for the challenge of the puzzles and progression throughout the dungeon. So I definitely give Dungeon Lurk 2 a recommendation, and I can see why it's been Steam greenlit. Best on you guys. 9 Keys Entertainment. Well done. Hey again, indie gamers. If you like what you've just seen, or if you agree or disagree with anything that you've seen in our review video, please do leave us a comment, and I will be happy to look that over. Always appreciate constructive criticism. However, if you do enjoy this review, please head on over to support.takethisstudios.com, where you can receive all sorts of independent video games, assets, resources, tutorials, and reviews that they offer. It's hosted by Patreon. Patreon is a website that's sort of like an ongoing Kickstarter, if you're familiar with crowdfunding programs like that, and they offer the ability to just donate however much that you would like, from $1 to $1 million should you so choose. For that, you'll get different bonuses and rewards from anything that Take This Studios does, anything from just specialized assets and resources for lower donators, and anything up to the higher donators where you become a patron or something along those lines, where you get quite a lot of exclusive benefits, including betas to Take This Studios games and much, much more.